Hello, everybody. This is Amir Abbas, and today, as I told you previously, that we are gonna be starting our new series, and this, apart from other videos in my YouTube channel, we will have a series of podcasts. And for our today's podcast, and this is the first podcast, our guest is Izzah Zaman. So, first of all, Izzah, I hope you are able to hear me clearly, right?
Yes,
Okay, so before I go into the details of our discussion today, a brief introduction. So I'm going to divide the introduction into two parts. For most of the part, I will let Izzah introduce herself. And I'm going to just tell you that how I know Izzah and how we know each other and how this conversation started. So Izzah is a Fulbright scholar, and we studied together at Carnegie Mellon University. So that's one of the way we know we are from the same Fulbright cohort, and we studied in the same university. Both of us graduated in 2021 uh, with a slightly different track. Mine was purely in healthcare, and Isa will tell more about hers. So that's how I know her. She's a software engineer by background, and then she has a lot to tell about herself. So Isa, how do you want to? The reason I want you to introduce to the audience is that how would you identify yourself? How would you want the world to know you? So over to you. How would you introduce yourself?
sure. Thank you so much for having me. And pretty much what you said, and a lot of other things too, I would say. So, other than being a software engineer, that's what I graduated as back in 2017. I completed my software engineering from NAST. And I've always identified as someone who's into a lot of things, including management, including public speaking, so on and so forth. So, therefore, when I had to choose what to do, it was a very difficult decision, primarily because there were so many things I was interested in. And I think that's one of the beauties of Carnegie Mellon, that it has a very interdisciplinary approach. It does not box you into specific things. You have the freedom to choose between a lot of subjects, and that was my reason for going there as well. I could study data, I could study policy, I could study management, entrepreneurship, and I studied all of those things and I loved doing it. And that naturally led me to do one of the things that require you to hustle a lot between multiple things, that is entrepreneurship. So, right now, I'm an entrepreneur working on creating bookings.com for the wedding ecosystem in Pakistan. My startup is called Shadiyana.pk, which can be visited at the same website, Shadiyana.pk, where we have vendors like photographers, makeup artists, and venues listed with us so that we can make wedding planning easy for everyone and they can do it from the comfort of their homes.
Right. So that was, I was a bit confused that how to introduce yourself, you because you have so many diverse angles to your personalities, and I don't want to limit you. For example, if I call you one thing, it means that I'm just limiting you to that very thing, which I think you yourself said that you kind of into many things at the same time. Uh, One of the reason you are here, which actually inspired me to bring you here, is your initiative, which is Shadiyana. But we're going to go to that in a bit. Not We're not going to start from there, uh, and there is a reason for that. I uh, just want to start from the very, very, very beginning, and not from the beginning where other people have started, but I want to go beyond that. So, how were your early education? And I mean, from early education, I mean, like, how was your schooling? Because what I think that okay, a university also shapes you. But to be honest, what I think of myself and other successful people whom I look, I think it has to do a lot with the schooling, and that's how I think a lot of parents who are watching us would also be interested in. So, can you tell us a bit about your schooling?
Sure, of course. So I come from an Air Force background. What that means is every year was a new school. So I was never in my comfort zone, that my friends from class 1 are still my friends, but I haven't talked to them for ages. What that means is that allows, I think, a lot of people to get out of their comfort zone, or not be in their comfort zone in the first place. After a couple of years, you have to move, you have to make new friends, start all over again, and then you get a taste of all these different cultures. So we got posted in Punjab, for example, and then Quetta and other cities. So that lets you interact with a lot of people and from diverse backgrounds, which I feel is a great learning experience. When you come across different people, their cultures, their likes and dislikes, and you learn to integrate with them at a very early age. I think that is very powerful. And the other thing I would say is the principles that are inculcated at a very young age are lay the foundation of who you're going to become as a person. For example, when I was a kid, I was in grade 3. I remember I used to be an okay student, so above average, but not the best. So, what my father used to say, he would say, if I come home and tell him that I got 0 out of 10 in a test, he said, that's okay. I won't say anything. Even if you get a 0 or a 10, that's fine. As long as you tell me honestly about it, as long as you don't lie. And I thought, and I, to this date, I think that's so empowering. The fact that I don't feel the need to lie at any small thing, or when I see a lot of people find it easy to just, make up things or lie their way around things. But those principles that were inculcated at a very young age, I think, really empowered me and shaped me as a person to this date in who I am. So, other than apart from schooling, I think I was lucky to have my father who's very principled, and he's also very kind towards people around him. So I think those are some of the things I also picked up very early on and was lucky to do so.
So, yeah, in your starting statement, you said a lot. I think we need to just take a step back and just dissect a few things, because I think we cannot ignore a lot of important things which you said. First of all, what you said that you kind of got educated from multiple institutions. That's what you said, which means what, that army public schools, right? Or
So because
multiple.
it was more Fizaya colleges.
Yeah, more of Fizaya colleges. So but from different branches of the Fizaya colleges. Now what that is to you is that gets you exposed to the pluralistic aspects of the society, which as opposed to a situation as compared to those students who just enter into one school and get out of the others. So you do not get a lot of diversity. That's one thing. Another thing which you said about discipline, and that's quite important as well. uh, I've also got education. I haven't been because I do not belong to a military family, so I haven't been to different schools, but my schooling is from Army Public School, and I think I can relate a lot to that, because one thing I don't know many people realize or not, and the people from the education industry, it's an important point for them, is that when I used to go to my school, right, the gigantic building, the big building, right, as opposed to very small, I think that still have an impact on my mind. That okay, I don't know what you call it. So I mean, that gives me a vision actually, right? So that those are the things which are very important. And as you said, parenting is very important, as you said, and then giving children the confidence to say, the competitiveness versus accepting them, right? So these are all the things which you said, which are quite important. So out of all this, what do you think, if you have to prioritize one or two things, which you think, one, two, three things which you would suggest to the parents, that they have to inculcate that thing into their children to become successful? And by success, I mean, obviously you are going to be, you have a lot to achieve in your life as well, but I think people have different parameters for success, and one of the success parameters for many is that you're a Fulbright scholar, so you graduated from one of the leading institutions in the world. So what do you suggest to the parents in this context then?
Success, like you said, can mean a lot of things, but I personally feel one thing that really, really needs to be inculcated in children by parents is honesty. And that also, the example comes also from our the religion I believe in, Islam, where honesty takes precedence over everything else. And it there are examples when, for example, if you feel like cheating, but then you think that if I cheat, then I'll have to lie about it to, for example, my teacher, or if I get caught, and that prevents you from cheating. Or if you're going to steal, and then the thought that if I steal, then I'll have to lie about it to someone, and that prevents you from stealing. So I think honesty is above everything else. And the lack of it, uh, uh, people don't trust you. Every relationship's foundation is trust. And in this world, even in business terms, they say your network is your net worth. So, and how does that network build or grow? The foundation is always trust, and especially for long term relationships. And if you lie, if you cheat, and if you're dishonest, then that's a very weak foundation for you to be able to do anything. I personally feel so. For me, the number one thing would be honesty.
Okay, so I would not go into a lot of details about your university journey because other podcasters have covered that a lot, and we would be interested in spending more time into it. But how does that so a student who has traveled, and as you said that you were kind of according to your own self, maybe others would disagree, that you were an average student and then you become a Fulbrighter, then you went to a Carnegie Mellon University. I mean, for many that so how did that happen? How would you describe the journey from, according to you, being an average student to getting into Carnegie Mellon, and then as in one of your podcasts, I won't disclose your GPA, but that was outstanding, right? And getting graduated from one of the leading institutions in the world, and with very good CGPA. How did that happen?
Right. I think a lot of it was luck.
Hmm.
uh, I'll share my journey, and you've been very kind in mentioning that according to myself, I was an average student. But if I share, I'm not shy about sharing the grades I used to get. In FSC, for example, my marks were 872 out of 1100, and that was, um, and it was federal board. So the university I went to, NUST, my class fellows were all toppers. They topped the board, and I was not one of them. I was probably one of the most low scoring students there.
Hmm.
How that transition happened is an interesting journey, and even when I reflect on it, I sometimes get amazed on how I became this person who's now a lot more ambitious. um, when I joined NUST, I actually started with architecture. I went to their architecture school, even though I was always good at maths.
Hmm.
So now there's a contrast. My parents thought architecture would be a very good field for me, and they saw a lot of girls doing it, and they thought it would be a perfect field for someone, for a female, and therefore they encouraged me to join architecture instead of computer science, where I also got admitted. but but I complied with their preference, and I joined architecture. So even though I used to like arts, but I don't think I was cut out for it. I was I used to miss maths, and I don't think I was. I did not have as much of an aptitude for architecture. Neither was I as much interested in it. So so what that meant for me was I was at the bottom of my class. So if there were 30 kids, I was probably in the bottom two, and that was a real eye opener for me, as well as a very difficult time. So even though I was an average student previously, I was never this bad. This was really bad. I did not like seeing my grades on the notice board where I was probably the lowest graded student, and so on. And so, first thing that I did, I realized that this is not for me. I'm not interested in it. My skills or talents and talent is not aligned with what I'm doing. I need to change that. That was a very difficult decision, required a lot of convincing for parents and for people around me, and then logistically as well, I had to really study hard in a very short time to be able to get into other schools or switch fields. which I did. So that required a lot of hard work, and I did put in that hard work to get into another school. And then when I joined software engineering in NAST, then I gave it my 100%. So when I was an average student, that was also a little bit by choice. I was a little lazy, I procrastinated. But now that I had really hit rock bottom, I felt like putting in all my effort to at least for redemption. For after getting such a bad GPA, I did want to at least get something reasonable, and then I think that was the motivation to at least not fail. And that's how I really studied hard for the first few semesters and ended up getting really good GPA within us. And I think that's how it started. Then I learned how to work smart, how to get grades, and I think then that just continued, and that allowed me. And once I was more ambitious, my aims naturally shifted towards more ambitious goals. People around me, when they thought they could apply for Fulbright, I thought I could as well, because my GPA, my credentials, they matched people who had gotten Fulbright. So I think that again empowered me to apply for this prestigious scholarship and think that I could get it. So I think that's how the transition happened.
Right. And you talked about Fulbright, and I mean, there's one thing to to get or not to get it, and there's another thing to apply or not apply it, right? And a lot of people fail because they plan to fail because they do not apply, right? And
Yes.
this is exactly how what you said. I mean, so getting out of that mental block and say, okay, I at least have to put in my application, right? I think I would say there are very few applicants in the Fulbright process where it's a very good scholarship, right? But a lot of people do not apply because they this mental block stops them. So what do you want to say to those people? Because I mean, I think there's a lot of misconception that Fulbright is for like the textbook toppers, which in Pakistani culture, I don't know about Indian culture, but in Pakistani, there is a person who doesn't do anything. He just one or two people. There are one or two three people in
Okay.
every class in every
Okay.
university. There's one person, and he's kind of knowing everything, and they're kind of always into the books. And so do you need to be that kind of a person, or you just like you can be an all rounder, you can be a sportsman, you can be enjoying your life at the same time you can apply to a Fulbright. What do you want to say to that?
Right. Firstly, I would like to say that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you're not applying, there's a 0% chance you will get it. If you apply, even if there's a 1% chance you'd get it, you're still better off. So not applying, do not put the barrier on yourself and reduce your own probability to zero. Even a 1% probability is better than 0%. So first off, I would say it's a fully funded scholarship to the US, which is otherwise so very expensive. So I would definitely recommend to at least apply. I know it's not as easy to apply, so there are some hurdles, like for example, GRE is expensive. But if you look at the cost benefit analysis, the payoff is very high. So it's not even 1% of the cost that they're willing to pay for you if you get the scholarship. Then the second thing that you mentioned, that is it for textbook toppers or is it for all rounders? From my experience, from my interview questions, personal statements, and everything that I've in every way that I've interacted with people from Fulbright, they do not, they want all rounders. They do not look for textbook toppers. There are other scholarship and universities for that, but Fulbright focuses a lot on cultural exchange. And for that to happen, you need to get out of your room. You need to be able to interact with people. You need to have skills, like maybe you're into sports, or you're interested in their culture, or you're good at arts or other things. But all those extracurricular activities that sometimes unfortunately are not as emphasized or not as cherished in our culture, Fulbright looks for those things. If you were a society president, I think very important to mention in your Fulbright scholarship, because that shows you've interacted with people, you've led them, you have a vision, you can take initiative, and all of these are things that Fulbright looks for. So if you're not the textbook topper, that's fine, that's okay. You should apply if you think you have a decent GPA. Even if you don't have that, you can make it up for that in your GRE score, and signal to them that you can work hard and you can go through academic rigor in the US, and uh, do mention or highlight other credentials that you have, including extracurriculars that you've been a part of.
Right. And then let's switch gears a bit to from Fulbright to Carnegie Mellon University. Did you ever envision being in Carnegie Mellon University when, or to be honest, let me phrase this question because that's actually true for me. I graduated from Carnegie Mellon. To be honest, in health sector, it's not a very commonly known university. So it was the Fulbrighters who educated me about the option of being Carnegie Mellon University. So how was your story around that? Did you put that in the plan which you made, or it was different?
Right. I'll share an interesting example with you. One day in my undergrad, I think I was in third year, and I was in a professor's office, and there was another friend sitting with me. And my professor said, "You know, one of my students, XYZ, they went to Carnegie Mellon." And my friend was like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." And there I was sitting and thinking, what is it? Like, is it a known university? Is this a university name? I had no idea what Carnegie Mellon was
So at which
until
stage was that? At which stage
this
was
was,
this is
I was in third year of my undergrad. So I was a
okay.
junior. Yes, yes.
Okay.
And at that time, I did not know about Carnegie Mellon at all. And then I looked it up and I thought, okay, if these people are saying such good things about this university, there must be something good about it. After my undergrad, when I was applying for Fulbright, then I wanted to get I applied for all the top schools, and Carnegie Mellon was one of those. I literally searched universities in the world, went through the rankings, went to their websites, saw their programs, and identified which one of those would be a good fit for me. And that's how I shortlisted Carnegie Mellon, and at that point I was aware that it is a very prestigious university.
So how was your experience at Carnegie Mellon? Would you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. So I think, Dr. Amir, you can also relate to it. A lot of our experience was transformed because of COVID, but
Yeah.
I will talk about both the parts. The first half, when we were in person and COVID hadn't happened, I think it was wonderful. It amazes me every day how inclusive those people were, in the sense that even in Pakistan we do see a lot of divide. I experienced at least a lot of divide among teachers, or favoritism among teachers, where they'll some of the students, they'll pay more attention to them even during the class, which I felt was very inappropriate. But I did not know at that time, because I hadn't experienced this environment where people are treated equally. And then later, when I went to CMU, I saw that they were inclusive. Everyone was treated equally. You did not know who was doing well in class, who was not doing well in class, because the teacher would treat everyone equally. And that, I think, is a very important thing, because if the teacher or the instructor creates a winner loser environment, that instills in the student's brain as well that, uh, for good students, that I'm really good, and for, if someone's struggling or not doing that well, then it ingrains in their mind that maybe I'm not good enough, which is not true. Academic assessments are not the best way to assess anyone's caliber or capability. And there, when they're not ingraining, when they're not equating you to your grades, you feel empowered no matter, even if you're struggling a little bit or not struggling. um, you understand that grades are grades, and there's a lot more to life than that. Then the second thing I would say, the inclusivity was also in their interactions, in the sense, in their social life. For example, I'm Muslim and I eat halal. E- every time there was a social event, there was halal food, there was vegetarian food. I was never I always had something to eat. I was never left looking for food, or wondering or wishing that maybe if there was food for me. In fact, I think I would, as a student, I would sometimes also rely on their food, and look out for lunches that they were hosting and stuff like that. So I thought That was really good as well, about CMU. Then when COVID happened, I was again amazed at how quickly they transitioned. Within 2 days, I think we had 2 days off when the entire semester, entire coursework shifted to online.
Yeah, we
And
got just an email, right? I was just
yes,
outside and on my mobile, I checked an email. Oh, what happened? So I was in the barber shop, and the barber is telling me that Howard has got online. The barber is telling me. And on the way back, I get an email that, okay, I mean, it was kind of every university one by one was going online. So, okay, yeah, you can continue, but sorry. I just
yes,
wanted to, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It was like that. And the time it took them to go online, there were no excuses. Unfortunately, I think that also maybe comes with us being a developing country. Whenever we see there's even a slight hiccup, for example, some other country's president is coming, everything gets closed for days. Like, how is that? You are stopping all the business from taking place. You're stopping, you're making it inconvenient for students to go to school to acquire knowledge for such minor things. And then there, when it COVID literally, it changed a lot of things, but they took 2 days to go online, change their curriculum, adapt it to online learning, and we graduated on time. The semester ended on time. There were no excuses that, oh, the pandemic hit, that is why we are late. There were no excuses like those. So of course, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to interject over here and to compare that not to the average universities in Pakistan, but I would not name the universities, but I would say the leading universities, or some of the leading universities in Pakistan are still struggling to uh, have a good online virtual architecture or infrastructure. I mean, this is kind of because this is not acceptable. I would say that at
Right.
least some of the leading universities should have near ideal architecture, near to the developed world. As you said that, okay, they adapted immediately. Why we cannot do it? Because I think there is a lack of will to do that, rather than anything else.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think where there's a will, there's a way. Uh, and it's not that complicated. It does not seem that complicated to me, at least. All these technologies, they exist for everyone, and they're scalable. And there just needs to be a will to really change things quickly. I remember talking to my professors that day after COVID, and how they transformed everything. And they said, we worked over the weekends, we were online all day that Saturday and Sunday trying to change things. So you see, there's a will there. Those professors, they were concerned about their students, that how will they learn during this pandemic. And I think that, I do think that needs to be translated here as well.
And that brings again every whatever you're saying. I will not go into a lot of details of that because each and every point can itself lead to a topic in its own. But I mean, a lot of time we do blame gaming and putting our own responsibility on others. But that is a very very specific example or how a country prioritize education. I mean, that is, I mean, you would say, okay, they are progressing because this of this reason and this reason and this reason. But I would say that this is say, I mean, there's COVID is happening, the world is shut down, but universities are not shut down. Hospitals are
Yes,
shut down. I mean, like places like hospitals shut down, like non-emergency operations were not there, and everything was shut down. Institutions collapsed, right? But educational institution, no. Like as you said, that we graduated on time. Everybody else graduated in time. I think none of the US universities were kind of, not to my knowledge at least, and not to in our cohort, nobody graduated late because of COVID, right? So that is kind of a message to our government as well. Please prioritize education. Education is very important. And now switching gears to the main thing, I think it should be your favorite topic as well. So with this background, coming from traveling all around the world, not all, starting all around the country and then to the US, and traveling through NERST and then through Fulbrighter, and then straight away you become a CEO of Shadiyana. So first of all, what is Shadiyana?
Shadiyana is bookings.com for weddings, or Food Panda for weddings. What that means is we have all the vendors related to weddings in one place. like photographers, makeup artists, and venues, so that people don't have to physically visit each of these venues, spend a lot of time, hours and hours and weekends on finding a venue for, or finding something as basic as their prices. They can do it all online from the comfort of their houses. Wedding industry, we felt, me and my co-founder, people spend their life savings on weddings. A lot of people go bankrupt or take a lot of loans just for a wedding, and even then the experience they get is is terrible because they're spending all their money, and then they're also getting very frustrated and very annoyed, and spending a lot of their energies in getting something as basic organized as maybe finding a photographer, because you message the photographer, they don't respond, you message 10 other people, they take ages to respond, then you check their availability, you manually compare their prices. The process we felt was very inefficient, and we had experienced it firsthand, because my brothers got married, then my friend's sister got married, and we were an active part of the planning process, and we observed that a lot of inefficiencies exist in this market. And while people have attempted to solve it earlier, the attempts have not been that serious, or they haven't gained as much traction. So that made us feel that there was a big need in the Pakistani wedding industry, and that needs to be addressed by local people. Why I say this is because if you look at a lot of startups, maybe food delivery or grocery delivery, these problems exist in the developed world as well. And a lot of times you would see that they would first implement it there, and then the same company would open up subsidiary here with all their resources. But if you look at weddings, it's a very local problem. It's not something, not everyone is as crazy about weddings as we are in this region. Uh, it's literally the biggest event in one's life, and even in terms of the money that's spent, the emotion that's attached to it, the reputation of the family, so on and so forth. So we felt that this was a local problem that we understood better than anyone else, and we needed to step up to solve it. So it also perfectly aligned with my skill set. I'm a software engineer, and I thought I could provide a digital solution for this, build it myself. Then I also really enjoy being creative, and just trying out new things. I recently, if you go to Shadiyana's Instagram, we actually made a vlog sort of thing where I dressed up as and you can have a look at it. It's just funny and it's humorous. So my co-founder and I, we like experimenting with things. We like trying out new things, and we thought this industry by its nature allowed us to do that. um, Weddings are fun, they have so many aspects to them, there are the social issues associated with them, which we also talk about on our Instagram. For example, the skin tone issue, that how a lot of people in Pakistan think fair is superior or better, which is not true, of course, and so on and so forth. We try to address them as well through our Instagram, through our social media. And we thought that this industry allowed us to be creative, was aligned with our skill set, and was big enough. We wanted the problem to be big enough so that whatever we did made an impact. And I think those were the three reasons which led us to try to solve a problem for the wedding industry.
So again, you said something very interesting, and one thing interesting is that when that day comes, and hopefully that day will come soon, and you go international, because I think this is a, as you rightly said, this is a very local concept, and this is not like something an example which has been implemented in the other part as Uber. For example, Kareem adapted the same idea which was developed at another place. This is something. Uh, so that's another. But when you, if you plan to go international, I think India and Bangladesh, I think those are the countries. Those may be in your limelight in terms of because they enjoy and they have the similar culture, right? Uh,
Yes.
Now coming to it being a very local thing, and that is something which I want to spend some time on it, because being working in it's very kind of I want to say something. I want to bring some right words for me to say that. For example, if you're working in data science and you're copying something else, if you say, okay, bring me a solution which is data centric, or which is attractive from the perspective of data science, but that should already be successful somewhere else, right? I mean, I kind of face that situation a lot. Especially, I'm going to talk a bit about the intersection of these fields and healthcare. But uh, was there somewhere a blog or somebody told you that, okay, what are you doing? You're risking your time, and XYZ. Why are you wasting your time on something? It's not going to work, and so many other negative things. So did you hear a lot of those things or no?
Yes, we hear them all the time. We hear them all the time, and I feel like people, and especially people I feel who themselves don't take initiative or not try to solve problem, it's easier for them to say, oh, this is not going to work. They haven't attempted doing something. So once you do, that's when you realize, sure, it may not be successful, but the journey is very rewarding. You learn a lot along the process. So the aim is, we understand that 90% of the startups fail, and when we attempt to do work on something like this, that's a risk we are taking knowingly. And so we are also mentally prepared for this. But of course, you try to mitigate that risk through research, through whatever ways you have, through testing your product, A/B testing, experimenting, so on and so forth. And we've done all of those things. But interestingly, I think one thing that has given me confidence in the past, when I was working on my final year project at NAST, my idea was a very entertainment oriented idea. At that time, my seniors, whoever had done their FYPs, they would work more on medical devices and products related to medical. And then when I would pitch my product, which was purely for entertainment, to a few teachers there, I remember one of the teachers vividly saying, this is not a bad idea, but I don't see you winning any awards on this idea. And we felt very discouraged because we thought our idea was very unique, very innovative, and very novel, and for it to come from a very esteemed professor was discouraging for us. But we still went ahead with it. We found other teachers who were more encouraging, who said that entertainment is an entire industry, and different people solve different problems, and if you're doing something for that industry, that's equally valuable and noble. So eventually we ended up winning a lot of awards, including a gold medal from NUST as well for that final year project. So I think that has somewhat empowered me and my co-founder both to focus on what you do, put in your best effort, and then I also have a lot of faith in God. Then leave the rest to God. What you can do, do your best effort, and if it's meant to be, whatever is meant to be will come your way.
Right. So I actually went to Shadiyana website and the forum, and so the front end. I want to say this thing because that's how people are going to look at it. Uh, the front end seems very simple, right? But can you see? I mean, because what somebody would say that, okay, this is one website, you have done this thing. What is it? It's just a website, right? Uh, that may be one of the opinion, but I can also understand that knowing some of the data analytics, that how much work would have gone into that. For example, the key strength is data, right? So what I'm getting at is that, how do you see, as a like your expertise in data science, how can data bring value to and business value to different avenues?
Right. I think data, like you said, data is oil. All our decisions are based on data. What is it that people are clicking more on? How should we recommend them? Which venue to look at if they've looked at this photographer or this makeup artist, so that the efficiency improves for them. They can quickly find things that would be of interest for them. Then, if we look at marketing, uh, which ads should we place, which campaigns are going well, if we are putting this much money in, how what's the return on it, all based off data. We are getting this many impressions through this ad. If we have put in, for example, x amount of money, and the same amount is working better for another campaign, and then to choose which ones to go for. So that's another aspect where we constantly rely on data to for decisions. Then to also for introducing new features in the product. For example, right now we are looking at our audience, and while we have data for Lahore and Islamabad and Karachi, we see a lot of audience from Peshawar coming on our website. So that's a very key insight, that data is telling us that if we want to expand to another city, it probably would be Peshawar, because that's where the people are coming from. Other key insights that we have an analytics review meeting every week, where we analyze where the people came from, how much time they spend on which of the vendors, what is it that they're more interested in, which filters did they click on, which buttons they clicked on. For example, a lot of people are looking for outdoor venues. So then that's business value for us. If people are looking for outdoor venues, we need to get more of them on board with us. And if people are looking for example, vendors in this certain budget, then we need to find more vendors who operate in this budget, so that people who are coming to our website can get the value out of it. So these are some of the areas. Then we also look at, for example, where are people dropping off. So if they've entered to the website, and then they went to this page and then this page, then why did they all of a sudden dropped after this page? Was it something, was the website working, was it functional, or did it stop functioning? So all of these are uh, the entire website or the entire decision making process is data driven, where we constantly look at analytics. How did the user interact with our website, and how can our business adapt to make the experience more meaningful for them.
So you are not. I mean, do you have any experience in healthcare?
uh no, I don't.
You don't have any experience, right? So let's assume that's. I mean, because a lot of the people on our in our viewership, they're healthcare professionals, and this is one of the key reason which I'm interested in, is that, for example, you come from a technology centered background, and you come to healthcare, right? Let's assume something like this you want to implement in healthcare. For example, you have worked in, I think you have worked in with different telephone mobile companies as well. Let's assume some mobile company is innovating a virtual clinic, right? So how do you think, based on your experience, that what challenges do you anticipate if you have to adopt this thing to healthcare, anything similar to healthcare?
Right. So the way if I understand correctly, do you mean a one-stop platform for healthcare professionals where users can connect with them and get consultancy, for example? Is that what you mean?
I mean, any innovative solution for healthcare that may be a one-step solution, one-stop solution, or they may be kind of a virtual clinic, or that can be, say, anything very disruptively innovative, right? For example, you say, let's assume I say we don't need hospitals. So let's assume, how do you anticipate, based on your experience, that how would that be taken? Let's assume you go to different hospitals, and let's replace your wedding venues with hospitals, right? And say to
Right.
different hospitals, like we have review system and we have stuff like that, and it's going to be a very transparent process, and we are going to market you, and those who have good reviews, they're automatically getting better marketing, and vice versa. So do you think that this idea is kind of adaptable to healthcare, or what is your opinion on this thing?
Right. I would say, like you mentioned, that if, for example, we go to hospitals, and what we also experience with venues in our cases, a lot of them are set in their ways. What that means is they think because something has been happening a certain way for the most of their life, that's how it should be, and or that's how it's meant to be, which is not necessarily true. That's how all the revolutions, industrial revolutions, IT revolution, those, that's how they happen, because there's a gap in the market which was previously not filled, and automation or technology allowed to fill that gap. But then those people who were set in their ways, who thought that medical only needs to be, for example, physical, you need to physically visit a doctor, uh, it's hard to uh, convince them because they haven't seen the other side. uh, it's usually, for example, even for venues, we see it's a hard sell. uh, they, because they're not familiar with technology. In the medical profession, while I do think most of them are, of course, very educated, but their exposure to IT may still be limited. From what I know, I have friends who are doctors, and I think they're still a little bit reluctant to use technology that much for their work purposes. Whenever they have to, they frequently ask us for help, that, to but I don't want to generalize. That's how I've experienced with my friends, but I don't know if that's how generally it is in the medical profession. So I do think there would be some sort of resistance towards adopting new technology, and that can require, if someone's doing a startup, that can require some persistence from their end into making them believe that it will be useful. And there are different tactics for that. For example, offering initially free trials, investing a lot, somewhat of money for adoption, to help them see the value, so that once they see it, then it's easier for them to believe. So I think those are some of the ways they can be convinced, but it can be a little hard for people who are set in their ways or who are not as familiar with technology.
So, do you? I mean, I don't know what your technologies and technological aspect is going towards, but and I do not have a very specific example when I'm asking this question. But do you intend to use kind of AI or some kind of algorithms to make some kind of a decision making for you in on your platform? Is that somewhere in your future, or do you have any? If you can share some of the ideas, I mean, I'm sure if you have not released them, you may not be able to share. But is that because you have a very technology centric background, especially a data science background, machine learning. So do you think that you can adopt that here in
Right.
your?
Yes. Some of the things that we're working on that will incorporate machine learning are personalized recommendations. So understanding how the user is behaving. For example, if you go to Amazon and you click on a certain item, then it shows you frequently purchased together. If someone purchases this, what other things are they likely to purchase? Or it also tells you, people who viewed this also viewed these similar items. So those are some of the things: personalizing recommendations, understanding how the user is interacting, how the user is behaving, and helping them make more transactions in a shorter time. So that's something we're working on, in terms of machine learning on our platform. uh, for the immediate future, it will be rolling out within 2-3 months. So that's the immediate thing that we're doing. And other than that, I think what we've thought of is more around recommendations. For example, if you're starting planning, that's for a later stage, but you come to the app and you just tell them, my wedding is on this date, and now tell me everything I need to know. And then, based on a few questions: where do you live, maybe what's your income, what's your preferences, and you just enter a few details, and then it curates the information for you. But that's something we'd be looking at later down the lane. Right now we are limiting it to personalized recommendations for vendors.
Okay, right. Uh, Again, changing gears a bit more, and you being a woman from the developing country and going to the developed country and coming back to Pakistan, starting a company or a startup. Uh, how first, before I go into that, where is your startup uh, physically located?
We're based in Islamabad.
In terms of like, where is your office?
It's in the National Incubation Center, Islamabad.
So and I want to bring that up a bit. I want to touch base because some of the people may not know. I was actually not knowing a lot about that. So you want to tell, because there are a lot of things which are happening in government, and we kind of are always critical about our country. So you want to tell us that what is National Incubation Center, and what are the benefits of that, how it facilitates people like you.
Sure. So if you have an idea that is novel, innovative, and you want to, or you're trying to solve a problem, uh, National Incubation Center is meant to support you, provide you the required mentorship, um, and the connections you might need to help execute that idea. These exist in a lot of cities, including Karachi, Islamabad, Peshawar, among others. So, what their process is, they have their applications open to join their cohort twice a year for NIC Islamabad, and they ask you a set of questions, including what is the problem you're trying to solve, what's your solution, product market fit, your slide deck, uh, and such other questions. It's a detailed application that you have to fill out, and a lot of people fill it out. I think 1,500 plus for NIC, and then they shortlist around 100 or 200 people, startups, and they invite them to pitch their product or their idea. And during those rounds, they're further shortlisted, and around 30 startups per cohort are selected uh, every 6 months, which then get to be a part of the NIC facility, which includes 1 year of rent-free space, mentorship from the industry mentors, a designed curriculum that includes different aspects of startups like design thinking, pitching, elevator pitches, and so on and so forth, where they guide you and mentor you on how to go about all of these things.
Right. So that's something which anybody has some idea, they can pitch to government and go about that in the future. Uh, you being a woman, as I said, coming from US, and first going to the US and then coming to Pakistan, uh, how is it? What challenges? I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges. It's not a question that did you face challenges or not. First of all, the question is that what challenges did you face, and still you're working. So how do you overcome those challenges?
I think the first and foremost thing I would say is mobility. To get out of your house and go to some place where you want to is a big challenge in Pakistan, unfortunately. Either I think I'm privileged to have a car at my house which I can drive and take myself to wherever I want to go. But I do understand that's not the case with everyone. And that wasn't the case with me as well. My parents were very concerned at me driving alone and taking the car. They thought I could not drive. Even though I don't think it takes a lot of expertise to be able to drive. I studied a lot. I did a lot of other things, so I thought I was capable enough to learn to drive and then drive myself. But somehow there's this stereotype that exists against women that they can't drive, they can't, and even other than the stereotype, there are very few means for women to be able to move around the city. Public transport is very limited. There is absolutely no public transport that goes from my house to NIC. So what that means if I have to avail, for example, Uber or Kareem, that's around 800 rupees of cost every day. And here I'm a startup with very limited resources, so it's a huge challenge. Now, although with the fuel prices, it's still a big challenge because the fuel prices are again very expensive now. But how do you get around? That's the basic thing to be able to work. If I have to visit vendors, how do I go if I'm a woman? There are just no public infrastructure is just not there to equip me to be able to move around, and I think that's the biggest difference I saw from a developed country where I could just take a bus, go anywhere I wanted at a very we did not have to pay for the bus even because we were students and the bus system was free for us. So from that, coming to a country where the infrastructure just does not exist. So I thought that was unfortunate, and I think that prevents a lot of women from working and from pursuing more challenging pursuits like startups that require uh, and then there already the probability is 90% that you'd fail, and then if you add these barriers on top of it, so that just increases the probability. There was this. I will also say though that there are good things in Pakistan, which we sometimes overlook, because when we compare it to other countries, for example, here to get things done, from what I experienced in the US, there's a lot of legal paperwork that needs to that you need to do for something very simple. For example, I could not get a form filled where people, if they were sharing their personal identity like their name or contact number, but those things don't exist in Pakistan, so that allows us to quickly develop, quickly research, get service filled and things like these. Or when we go for sales to our vendors, being women, they treat us more respectfully, I would say. They don't make us wait as much as if a male salesperson goes and visits them, or they don't treat them as well, they treat us more respectfully. So those things also exist, I would say, in our culture.
So this is again a new insight for me. You coming from Pittsburgh to Pakistan, and I ask you the question, "What do you miss a lot?" And you say to me, "The public transport." And I can exactly relate to what you're saying because I've been frequently using that transport, and I compare that to the some of the political slogans that public transport is not important. I think here you come. I mean, you come from a leading university, from one of the best cities in the world. You say, okay, in even in Pakistan I have offices, I have universities, I have everything, but from if I have to commute from point A to point B for whatever reason, and if, when there is no mass infrastructure or no transportation system, how would I work? If you whether that's a startup and you build, let's think of people like female school teachers and people like that. So this is again a message to the government that I don't know whether you have lived in Karachi or not. I mean, it's a nightmare in Karachi. I don't know how people manage it without a car, and even with a car, it's a nightmare in Karachi. And then you talked about driving, right? So what I think, you said that driving is not simple. It's easy. I would say to learn driving in a Pakistani context, that's a whole new, you need a Shadiyana type of innovation to decomplicate the complexities around driving, because I often say that people can not go over you, they go from left of you or right of you, and they
Yes.
cannot go under you and over you, otherwise they go from everywhere. So these are the things which are very important, and I think someday I would suggest to the self-driving cars that test your car here. If your car is successful here, they can be successful in any country of the world. So this was something on a lighter note. uh, so with that said, how with all these challenges, right? You have, and you said that you prioritize the transportation challenges, and there must be other challenges as well. And whenever we suggest some solution, and you know enough economics as well, that you have to consider it from the perspective of scalability as well, right? The impact will be created if you are able to provide it to almost every woman. How do you have any quick? Do you think of any solution to this problem, or you still know?
Yes, I do. For example, Dr. Amir, if you remember the transport system that we used to have, those were buses operating on the same roads as the rest of the traffic. So there were no dedicated routes for it, but there were times that it would come and everyone could hop on the bus, pay that amount, and the bus would go. Of course, if that happens in Pakistan, then we do have challenges like traffic jams that happen very frequently, or buses may be late. But I do think that's a starting point. You have to start somewhere. The infrastructure, at least the roads are there. So the additional cost would be of having that bus, making sure it's safe for women to board, because that's in other transportation, that's a huge issue where women face harassment. So I think those are baby steps, very little steps that the government can take to at least put things in place where nothing exists for women. And from then, I have used metro in Islamabad and I think it's great. Sometimes people question the cost benefit analysis, and I personally feel I'm not as informed about the budget decision that was being made, what other options were there and stuff like that. And I don't think I'm as informed or in a position to comment on that. But as a service or an infrastructure that exists for the general public, I think it's really good. And I think it should be expanded if the cost benefit analysis or whatever it is that goes into decision making permits. I do think that's a very valuable asset for the long term.
Yeah, this is uh, I actually lost the chain of my thoughts. So so apologies for this. What I think is that I mean, there are a lot of options. What I was thinking, yes, and now I remember it. One is that okay, you make infrastructure, but government also completely ignores its regulatory roles. Like most of the regulatory bodies in Pakistan, they are not regulatory bodies; they are something else. I mean, they can be. I don't want to go what something else they are. There is not a decent name for that, but at least what I can safely say that they are not regulatory body. What governments do around the world, what I have seen is that, for example, especially in healthcare, I don't know a lot about transportation, but in the US, most of the healthcare is delivered by the private organizations, and healthcare and government only regulates, and the regulatory frameworks are so well organized that, for example, in healthcare, you organize PMDC, you organize CPSP. So, in terms of that, I mean, there is a lot of value. For example, there are very good transporters, right? It's not that like the message to the government is that properly regulate them and implement. There are laws, just implement them, right? There are laws related to the quality of the vehicle, there are laws related to licensing, and there are laws related to everything. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked from our main topic. So coming back to Shadiyana, how do you see it, and I think and one of the reasons these discussions got generated was that Shadiyana is an innovative project. And one of my uncle who died when I was in the US, when he came to Pakistan, he said that Pakistan is a full of opportunity, countries full of opportunities. I mean, he used to see. He was a businessman in the US, and he in DC, and he came to meet me in Pakistan, and he said, "What you see as problems, I see them as business opportunities." Right. So whatever we are discussing here, like the transportation problem, as you picked on one of the problems, so it is an opportunity for someone to capitalize on, solve somebody's problem, get revenue from that as well, and so win-win. But government has to play its role in that, and make another startup like Shadiyana to solve anybody's problem. So where do you see Shadiyana going in the next 5 to 10 years? What is your vision for Shadiyana?
So my vision is, if anyone thinks about planning a wedding, the day their date gets fixed, they go into shadiana.pk to start planning. And they
Hmm.
can do it by spending as minimum of their resources in terms of energy, time, fuel, as permitted by technology. So they can find their photographer, book it directly, find their bridal dress, make the initial interactions. For some things, a lot of people would still want to visit, and we understand that. But to make that shortlisting, but to make that decision making easier and convenient for everyone, they should go to shadiana.pk and be able to find all the relevant information they need to plan their wedding.
And just I will put the link of the website in the description of this video after the video is there on the YouTube. And those who want to go into see, I've seen it. It's wonderful. If I have to organize a wedding again, I will definitely utilize it. Unfortunately, I belong to Kohat, so you don't. I think so. So this is a vision which I will also want to suggest. Don't only target a small big cities, because what happens in small cities is that okay, as compared to the big cities, in the small cities there are 3 4 5 vendors who have their monopoly, right? So if a initiative like yours come here, they're gonna play its role, the technology is gonna break that monopoly, which to some extent has happened in the bigger cities because there are so many options. But in the small cities, you get very poor quality, and for some reasons, because for social reasons, if I'm from Kohat, have to organize the wedding in Kohat, right? I mean, and that is something which came to my mind on the go. You want to say something on this point?
No, I think you're raising a very good point, and we definitely want to make it accessible for everyone and inclusive of all cities. It will just take time. We have started off with Islamabad, but we do that is our plan to expand all over Pakistan,
Yeah,
both to bigger cities and smaller cities.
exactly. Uh, any other thing want to share with the viewers? Any other thoughts which you think are relevant to our discussion?
uh, I think one recommendation I would have is, if you've read Steve Jobs' biography, or I would recommend you to read it, because a lot of times when we think about starting our own stuff, um, and it seems daunting, and it seems like people will think, are these people crazy? And then a quote that is very close to my heart too: people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So if you cannot think it, you cannot do it. So it's okay to think you're being crazy. It's okay if people tell you, say all kinds of things to you. The journey is very rewarding. It's not the success or the destination that matters, but the process that you're going through, or stuff you're learning on the way, people you're meeting. It was a great opportunity today talking to you, Dr. Amir, and you're being a part of this conversation and being able to speak to your audience. I thought all of this was also possible because of Shadiyana, perhaps, or something I started. So the journey is very rewarding. So I would definitely recommend, if someone has an idea that they want to work on, go for it.
I think this is really purely inspirational, at least for me, and I'm sure for others as well. That if you have an idea, start working on it and just work on it from start to finish. That's what I would end it with. Thank you very much, Izzah, for taking out your time from your busy schedule. We hope someday and one thing which I should have actually started my description was that one day when you will become big, I will say that okay, I interviewed you on my channel. Uh, I mean, you are already big, but I mean big to the level that okay, you become a very big celebrity, and like people say, I will very proudly say that I was one of the very first people who interviewed. And I honestly believe that that is going to happen. So thank you very much, Izzah, for giving us time. Take
Thank
care.
you so much. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Allah Hafiz, and Allah Hafiz to
Yeah.
the audience.